Welcome back to the channel, folks. My name is Vin, and this is the Venn Diagram, a channel dedicated to the intersection of my life experiences. Today is the first video in a series about Steven Bartlett's Diary of a CEO. If you're not familiar with him, Steven Bartlett is a businessman. He is the founder of Third Web, Flight Story, and Flight Story Fund. And you might know him from his podcast, Diary of a CEO. This first video in my series is the overarching point of the entire book, which is the basics of the pillars of greatness. For me, my interpretation of these pillars is what makes you, you. Let's get into it. So pillar number 1 is the self. He writes that the height of your success is gauged by your self-mastery, and that the depth of your failure is defined by your self-abandonment. But what does this even mean? You have to know yourself, understand who you are. You have to be willing to face your successes and your failures. The lowest and most telling period of my life was a time in which I was a nightclub promoter. I also worked at a bakery from 6 a.m. to 2 p.m., went home for a nap, and then went promoting from 9 p.m. and into the early morning. It was a chaotic time for me. I made minimum wage at the bakery, and I made $3 per person that I got into the club promoting. I was fortunate to find a 7-bedroom home with strangers that only cost $400 a month to rent my room. Being a promoter sounds really cool, and it was. There's free alcohol, lots of parties, but in reality, my drinking addiction and abuse of other vices was at an all-time high. I also had such a broad social circle that no one noticed my habits and thought I was just living a super cool lifestyle. And I flash forward to now, where I am 6 years into my fundraising career and the most financially stable that I've ever been. And I share this story because this present version of me that you are seeing right now cannot exist without learning from the previous me's that have existed. A me that was lost after graduating and didn't want to use my degree. A me that needed to understand the value of work and my labor. A me that needed to see my addictions as a problem. A me that still hadn't allowed myself to rest when I needed it. A me that didn't have the mastery I do now over the versions of myself since. This is what I understood as understanding the self. Pillar number 2 is the story. Stories are the single most powerful weapon any leader can arm themselves with, right? Such a good quote. You thought that was me, huh? God, I'm so weird. So this book is about the diary of a CEO after all. Steven says the currency of humanity is stories, and that those who tell captivating, inspiring, and emotional stories rule the world. This is a concept that Matthew Dick's book, Someday is Today, also emphasizes. He is currently my favorite storyteller, and you should watch that video to get a glimpse into his book. Steven and Matthew both talk about the ability to tell stories as key to getting our points across to people. If you can't talk about yourself, your experiences, then how do you expect to serve the world? Once you understand yourself better and know that that is an ongoing process, it's not just a one-time thing, learn to tell your stories well. Be specific about your experiences, be humble, and be honest. And this is how you can change the world. And maybe I'm a little naive for believing that, but I do. So you might have noticed that I really love self-help, productivity, personal wellness, professional development kinds of videos. And I don't know if this is my niche forever, but this is just the types of books that I enjoy reading and then sharing with my friends. So that's why I'm sharing it on YouTube, is that hopefully this helps somebody in the future. Now, if you want more tailored support, I did open up my Calendly. It's in the description. So if you want to book a 1-hour consultation with me to talk about like what you want to accomplish and what habits can get you there, hit me up in the Calendly that's in the description. I'll let you get back to the video. Pillar number 3 is philosophy. Steven notes that someone's philosophy is a forecast of how they'll behave in any situation. I want to share a few of my own philosophies and show how I apply this particular principle. This is a malleable list. One principle is moviti. This is an Italian word meaning to move. I actually have it tattooed on my calf here. For me, it is a reminder that I have to keep moving to live the life that I want. Sometimes that means pause, sometimes that means running full speed ahead. But no matter what happens, I keep going. One that ties into this one is, which is exhaust all possibilities. I have built a gauge of when I need to give up and when I need to keep pushing. In a specific scenario though, let's say I broke a leg on a table because I wanted to. I could toss the table and buy a new one. I could repair the leg. I could hire somebody to repair the leg because I'm lazy. I could also turn the table into an art piece and forgo entirely using it as a table at all moving forward. These are all versions of me exhausting possibilities for a table. But let's do something more relevant. Relationship. Let's say that something in a relationship is broken. So I could get rid of the relationship and get a new one because it's so easy. You know what I mean? I can also attempt to repair the relationship. I can hire someone, therapist, spiritual guide, mom, what? Or I can go to a music festival and avoid the problem entirely. I think you get the picture though. You owe it to yourself to try to make things possible. And you also owe it to yourself to know when to quit. My newest favorite in my guiding principles is that feelings are not facts. I read this somewhere and I don't know where to cite or how to cite it. I'm sorry. Usually pretty good at that. Feelings are an interpretation of the facts. Your feelings tell you their perception of what is happening. And that is not always the same as the truth of the situation. When I heard this, it unlocked so much for me. And yes, I can validate my feelings of sadness, of guilt, of feeling hurt, but my feelings can also be lying to me all the time about what is actually happening. So gather your principles, live by them, and make your life easier by having a set of standards in life that you can follow. Pillar number 4 is a team. Steven writes that the most important success factor in your work is who you choose to work with. I have a video on how to choose the right people to be in your life, and I'll link that in the description. You have to be careful about who surrounds you. Who you are around influences your best, worst, and everything in between habits. Steven maths that your first 10 employees will decide 10% of the company culture moving forward. That's wild, right? But the maths. So be selective. If I were starting a company, I would choose people with ambitious ideas. Find people with unique frameworks of thinking. People with a balance of the rational and irrational. And people who move the mission forward in a way that is meaningful. I still don't have a company, by the way, but one can dream. You know what I mean? So the pillars are the self. How well you understand yourself, inclusive of your highest highs to your lowest lows. The story, your ability to understanding of yourself and the world to people. Philosophy, what you believe makes you who you are and thus decides what you are capable of becoming. The team, the people around you determine your ability to do what you are set out to do. Their worst and best traits are accessible if that is what you choose to be around you. That's part 1 of this book deep dive series. And if you liked it, let me know what you thought in the comments, and I'll see you in the next one.